politicians on the other side of the Channel, that is inextricably linked with monetary union. Emma Udwin reports on what looks like becoming the next battleground.
The UK-Netherlands landing force. British and Dutch Marines trained together in the freezing conditions of Norway. If this operation was taking place in a real war, men of the two nationalities would be fighting together as a single unit, prepared and equipped to land under single command. Though this kind of cooperation began over 20 years ago, Europe's ability to react to a crisis without America is still shaky, as Bosnia has proved. For once, Britain agrees with our partners that there must be advances in Europe's common foreign policy and defence. But what sort of progress, and how far? At the next European summit in just 5 months' time, the British government will be discussing with our partners how far Europe should build on Maastricht. It's all part of the preparation for the crucial intergovernmental conference next year, where defence looks set to become one of the most difficult issues. For some of our partners, defence is the acid test for political union. For the British government, it's an area where it wants Europe to move forward, but without giving ground to the federalists. The British government has already started staking its position. Yes, to improve military integration, but no to handing more power over these servicemen to the European Commission. The final say over risking soldiers' lives must stay with nation-states. And in all, the formula amounts to more of the same, only made to work better.
Intergovernmental cooperation of a very intimate kind, some common operations, maybe with a strengthened secretariat, reformed NATO. NATO's worked very well. We want to keep the NATO formula. Good bilateral links with our neighbours, with France, with Germany, and the flexibility to deal with new enemies, new threats and new issues as they come up, not in a rigid bureaucratic framework, but on the basis of the individual nation-states getting together in a sensible, pragmatic way.
Defence chiefs gathering for celebrations as East German troops come under NATO command for the first time. Germany's as committed to NATO as we are. But there's conflict ahead. Britain wants individual states still to work with NATO through the Western European Union, the WEU, at arm's length from the European community. While in Germany, there are proposals that could destroy the nation-state itself.
In the long run, that means 5 or 10 years, WEU, of course, should become part of the European Union. That means that we have no more WEU. And it is the goal of the Maastricht Treaty. The European Union then, for instance, should be the partner, the member of the North Atlantic Treaty. It's one member and no more 16 or 20.
One thing.
One, yes.
I talked to congressmen yesterday from America, the new right-wing Congress, and they said if Europe doesn't share more of this defense burden, we will leave Europe. We can't explain that anymore to our public. I think it is of vital importance that we develop a European defense identity, but never against NATO, always under the roof of NATO.
Is your aim that in the end we should have a joint foreign and defense policy, almost as though we were one state?
Exactly, that's my aim. I think we should have one foreign policy, one army, with extreme close cooperation with the United States of America and Canada. And that is the only chance that Europe can remain important partner in world affairs and can compete with other areas of the world.
Germany is not alone. The European Commission is moving debate in a similar direction. Europe's hesitant action in Bosnia is regarded as proof that the intergovernmental cooperation so favoured by the British doesn't work. Rather than risk developing a union that's indecisive and slow to act, there's growing pressure for a shift to majority voting on foreign affairs. Again, the British preference, unanimity, is seen as a recipe for one thing.
Paralysis. Because, again, we are now 15 members. And I think that by the year 2000, it could be the year 2005, we don't work with these specific calendars when talking about prospective new members. But then with 25 and a veto right in each and every member, that then could block a decision. Whereas maybe a common European interest is at stake. I think that is, in the longer course, untenable.
Do you think the European Union should have its own military forces at its disposal?
I feel that a world power, which the European Union, after all, is, and if it wants indeed to perform a role commensurate to its economic weight also on the political scene, cannot do without a military capability of its own to back up its policy.
The French Prime Minister inspecting Eurocorps, the Franco-German initiative that might one day become a European army. But the British are counting on Monsieur Balladur to back their position in 1996. He's just signed a new agreement for joint Franco-British training and exercises. And he tells British ministers he wants what they want: intergovernmental cooperation and national sovereignty over defence. But there are already signs of compromise.
Mais cela n'empêche pas que l'on puisse avoir des accords de défense.
That doesn't rule out defence agreements of a permanent nature which foresee the virtually automatic involvement of a country's armed forces under certain circumstances.
Dans un certain contexte.
Monsieur Balladur, of course, is not a free man. He wants to be president, and in the elections this spring, he's relying on support from pro-Europeans in other political parties. And they believe his recent pledge to join a single currency makes entering a single defence inevitable.
Single currency means the same monetary policy, budgetary policy. Once you've been speaking about budget, you're speaking about the armies, because they are eating a lot of public money. So once you've been speaking about that, you're speaking about common defence and security policy.
The idea that monetary union will drive Monsieur Balladur into political union is shared by the Germans. What's more, they point out he actually wants monetary union rather more than they do. Now German public opinion has cooled to the idea, and they think they've got him exactly where they want him.
Because everybody in France knows very well that currency union is in Germany a difficult issue. I think that we will convince France that we need also some success and progress in the foreign policy field.
Good evening, Chancellor.
Ken Clarke knows how powerfully the linking of monetary and political union abroad feeds scepticism in his party at home. The two have to be separated if the Tory party is ever to accept a single currency. But his attempt to do so this week failed to persuade either sceptical or mainstream Tories.
The idea that monetary union will be followed by defence and foreign policy union is indeed the argument why we should be suspicious of monetary union. I mean, what is being said when people argue that way is that monetary union is not a monetary or financial or economic need, it's a political aspiration, as it is on the French part, that they want to bind Germany in. That's very interesting for them, but it's not something we should follow.
If you have a single foreign policy and a single defence policy with a single currency and a single bank, it strikes me as not a great leap of intelligence to understand that you now have essentially a single state, and all that's required finally is for a single government.
Monsieur Balladur has tried to smooth the way for the British by suggesting monetary and military union could start separately, with different players in each. But his Europe minister, often employed as official kite flyer, gave this warning to On the Record.
We must fix a date in the not-too-distant future by which time we should all be united, both in the monetary and the defence union, because we want to share a common destiny, which is composed of both.
The British government may like to believe that the high tide of federalism has turned, but Alan Lamassoure, for one, believes that ever closer union will sweep Britain along with it.
I'm convinced that once monetary union exists between 7 or 8 continental countries, its dynamism will be such that no other member of the community will be able to stay outside it for any length of time. And the logic which led Mrs. Thatcher herself to enter into the ERM in the first place will very rapidly lead to the British government joining the monetary union.
I think too that John Major knows it very well, and that Clark knows it, of course, very well, that the City of London knows it very well. It's possible that Great Britain doesn't join the currency union.
Britain believes Europe needs our soldiers, our resources, and our know-how if it's to have a credible defence. It's one of the strongest weapons Britain has ever had in European negotiations. But if a single currency does come into being, we'll find ourselves pitted against forces which may be all but impossible to resist.
Emma Udwin.